Greetings, Patriots, and welcome to another episode of The Spirit of 1776, brought to you by the 1776 community. I am your host, Brock Fankhauser, and today we're going to be talking with Jason Forrest, who is the CEO of world-renowned Forrest Performance Group, who is a world-renowned leader in sales recruiting, sales coaching, and fractional sales coaching. I've had the pleasure of knowing Jason for 5 years, and he's had a profound impact in my business. But in working with him, we've learned about some of the skills that he has with cool things like neuro-linguistic programming, NLP, and he's a wordsmith. And beyond all of that stuff, Jason is a patriot, and we're glad to have him on the show to talk about a couple of the core values of the 1776 community and his commitments to giving back. So, Jason, welcome to the program.
Brock, I'm excited to be here. I've seen you birth this company, and it's been really cool to watch it happen.
Thank you. Why don't we start? Just tell us a little bit about who is Jason Forrest.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm a sales practitioner, sales trainer, sales coach. My whole life I've been really obsessed with personal development. I was very fortunate. I grew up in a entrepreneurial family like yourself, and my Sunday school teacher was Zig Ziglar growing up, and just I've always just been about why is it that certain people are more successful than others, and I really asked that question to myself at a young age, and it's not about circumstances, it's not about the government, it's not about the color of their skin. It's just really about what they think about, what they say, and what they do, and that's the thing that matters more than anything else. So I found that out at an early age and became obsessed with kind of studying the people who are accomplishing more than others, and then how do I model them? How do I model what they think about, what they say, and what they do, and then teach that to other people?
Sure, but you've demonstrated both in large public settings, small public settings, videos. You have a gift for words. I'm not so sure that comes naturally to anybody. How would yourself have developed that over the years, and when did you first know you had it, and how are you building upon it today?
Well, it's interesting. I don't think anything is natural. I agree with you on that concept, but I do think that being impeccable with your words, and it's just like any language. So it's just like it just in high school and college, we're forced to take a foreign language of Spanish or French. I remember when I was in school, my dad wanted me to take Latin because he believed that was the root of all languages, and so I was in Latin for several years and then Spanish. But the difference is that neuro-linguistic programming is just the science and psychology of how high performers think, speak, and act. But neuro, brain, linguistic, our speech has the ability to program, has the ability to influence and program, obviously, our brain. So what we say to ourselves and what we say to others, it changes that. So the example everyone would understand is there's a direct correlation to people that are depressed. If you reverse engineer them, they spend more time thinking about the problems and more time talking about the problems than people who are not depressed. The people who are not depressed, they spend more time trying to figure out how to get out of the problem than they do the problem itself. And so that's an interesting concept. Well, that's the idea of NLP is just to take a step back and study, what are the things that, again, anxious people or depressed people or unhappy people, what are they thinking about? What are they saying to themselves and others? What are they doing? And then how do you kind of do the opposite of that? But NLP is just, again, it's a language. That's all it is. It's a language. It's a language of high performance. But just like Spanish or French is, it's just people aren't required to take a language of high performance or learn that in school, but we are required to learn Spanish that we might not ever use.
Yeah, right. Language to me is very important. I think I spend a lot of time thinking about language as it was intended 250 years ago. One of the phrases or words that sticks out to me, it's within the Declaration of Independence, it's happiness. And we hear it a lot in society. I think it's been hijacked that people think we have a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If you go back and you look at the origins of what the founders wanted, they wanted happenstance. They wanted life, liberty, and happenstance, which kind of is rooted in opportunity. And yet here we are 250 years later, and it becomes an emotional attainment that we've made it when we're happy, which I find so crude. I don't know if you knew that.
I didn't. I didn't. That's no. I think that's a really cool concept. So the idea behind it is, I mean, what they're basically saying is, you know, if I understand this right, not to make it so simple but they're basically saying that it's the journey, not the destination, right? Is that what I'm?
Yeah, you have an equal shot at the journey. Yeah. The
Yeah.
destination is up to you. You have rugged individualism to get there. Good luck. But we've planted the seeds. You got to bring the water. So yeah. Also, and why I really wanted you on the show is to talk about two core values of the 1776 community. One is honoring the promise. Two is giving back. We'll start with honor the promise. More specifically, in a 1776 community, residents who live there have to fly the American flag. If it's a new construction build, the builder is required to put the American flag on the home. We want to see it on their construction drawings. And then from there on, we want the governing documents of the association to compel people to keep the flags flying. And when our first 1776 community went viral last year, news organizations were hyper-focused on us forcing people to fly the American flag. But as I go into our governing documents, it's hard for me to find any elements of force because there's no penalty for not doing it. And it had me thinking that our governing documents are more of a parchment promise that one neighbor pledges to another. I promise I'll fly the flag. That's why I bought here. That's why you bought here. Let's let that promise dictate without even the force or the threat of force. And I just want to get your intake, knowing how you're a wordsmith and the power of words, what you think about that concept of honoring a promise.
I think it's everything. There are probably very few things that we have in our life besides that. I mean, I think, you think about, like, I know when my wife and I got married, that was obviously what we were doing, at the altar is promising these commitments to each other. We actually wrote our own vows because we didn't like the standard vows that were created, and we wanted to create a new contract with each other that we felt really, that we felt excited to do. But that was a promise. And every time we, every one of our anniversaries, we re-say the vows to each other. That's one of our things that we do to remind ourselves of the promise that we have for each other. So, I think that's, it's almost hard to even. I mean, it's funny. I'm a wordsmith, but it's hard to put into words the value of what you're trying to do here, because what you're trying to do is just give people a structure to be like just better human beings, which I think is a cool thing. You're giving them like a foundation, a container to say, hey, here's what I stand for, and here's what I'm all about, and here's what I believe, and here's the commitment that I'm going to make to other people. I mean, I know, on the sales training that we teach, I mean, that's a big thing that I like to teach in our sales training is, today, Mr. Customer, I promise to do the following. Today, Mr. Customer, I promise to give you an experience that you've never had before. Today, I promise to give you all the information you need to make an informed decision. Today, I promise to I'll always speak my truth to you and speak truth to you, and do everything I can to make sure that you leave with everything that you need. I mean, like, I'm very big on that, and I think that's important because I don't think most human beings are probably even done the self work to figure out, like, what do they claim, what do they stand for, what's important to them, what will they die for. I mean, those are some, like, serious questions people need to ask. And so, if you can create a community that again stands for something and says, hey, here's the promise we're making to each other, the promise I'm making to myself, the promise I'm making for this country, I think that's pretty powerful.
It's almost going back to the future, right? Going back to a time where it's simpler. I don't know if promises were more strictly held between consenting adults back then, but it occurs to me that probably there was a little bit more of the sacredness of that promise.
I mean, probably so, Brock. Sorry to interrupt, but just the whole idea of a handshake agreement. I mean, I remember, even when I first started my company, it was I didn't have non-competes. I didn't have, I didn't have all that kind of stuff that you kind of have now, because I wanted to create a culture that, like, it's a handshake agreement. We're going to do these things, for each other, and then of course, a couple of employees treat you the wrong way. You have to kind of make some different arrangements. But I mean, I think the more that we can stick to that, the better.
You are single-handedly changing, from my experience, the sales process, right? I was taught from old school sales theorists, right? There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, and at the end you want to drop that line, what do you think about buying this home today? And what you were just saying of all of these pledges that if a properly trained salesperson, I promise to do this, I promise to do this. Well, when you get to the last chapter, there is no closing. There's a statement or a question of, do you trust me? Do you trust me? Welcome to 1776. You're going to love living here. That is revolutionary in how we look at transactional relationships, right? We've been complicating it too long.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think so. I mean, just the other day, I was working with a new customer of ours, new organization, and they said to me, Jason, you're not a very pushy salesperson, which is interesting since you're a sales trainer. And I said, well, that's because I'm good at what I do. So I said, if you felt that I was pushy, that means that I would be out of rapport with you, and I would be kind of making you do things that felt not in alignment with what your goals are. And so I believe in warrior pressure, not pressure. And that's, I'm all about helping you make decisions that are in your best interest, and getting to a point of resolution around things that will rationally and logically lead to, the ultimate decision of, is this the right thing for you or not? But I would assume that same with you at 1776. I mean, the big thing I believe in is, like, I don't want, I mean, let me say this. I want everyone to work with my company who wants to work with who's like in aligned with my values. And I'm assuming that's the same with 76. You don't want everyone to, I mean, that's the whole point. I mean, that's why you probably had some of this heat on the news. It's like, who cares? Like, you're right. If you have a problem with this, we don't want you to 1776. Like, that's the cool thing about America, is we have the ability to create little communities based upon, what we are into and what we desire. That's the value of America.
Yeah,
is to be able to have that choice.
sure. I was on a conference call today with some developers who we're talking about a deal in Greenville, South Carolina, and they asked me, if specific to 1776, do we have any competition? And I said, I don't know. And they said, do you know of anyone doing a 1619 project? And we all started laughing. I said, that'd be kind of fun, right? If someone out there want to put their money behind another visceral idea, I think our idea is visceral in a good way. It evokes strong emotion, but I don't foresee someone going so far and risking their own wealth and dignity to do a neighborhood like that. But we'll see.
It's interesting.
One of the other things I want to talk to you about is giving back. It's 1776. We're giving back in a couple of ways. One, every community we build, we're going to donate a home to a veteran. And in our first neighborhood outside of Charlotte, we are 60 days away from that exchange, where we're going to have just an amazing party. We're going to have military generals. We're going to have a military band. I want flyovers and all that fun stuff, ultimately to welcome the Clark family to their new home. I've been building neighborhoods for 25 years. I've never done anything like that. I've always wanted to. And now the time has come. And additionally, we're going to be donating $1,776 per closing to Folds of Honor, a charitable organization that provides education, really scholarships, to the families of wounded warriors or deceased warriors. You, I know, have recently landed a gig with the Department of Defense. You're giving back in a unique way with sales training to recruiters whose job is to make sure that our armed forces are properly populated with able-bodied, able-minded men and women. That's a fascinating story. Tell me how you got into that and how it's going.
Yeah, it's really great. So I was actually outside walking my dog, of all things, or dogs, these big, huge Great Dane poodles called Dana Doodles, and so I'm walking the dogs, and one of my neighbors comes by, and he's a retired colonel from the Army, and we're just honestly talking, and he's on the board of West Point, and I said he starts sharing with me that did I know that that the mission of the Army and the Navy has been, they've been failing their mission on recruiting new people into the Army and Navy, and the military as a whole is going down. And I was like, I did not know that. And I immediately responded back and I said, I can fix that. He's like, how can you fix it? And I said, well, they just need the recruiters just need to be taught how to convince Americans to join the cause. That's not hard to do. You just got to give them a process, a strategy, the right thing to think about and say and do. And so he just put me with the right people. And the first gig was me just donating my time and working with them. Since then, it's turned into an actual a relationship with the Army and the military, which is great. But it was really interesting when I first started. I went in there, and the reason why I was so excited to do it is because the military takes the same approach that businesses take when something's not selling. So when something's not selling, they discount it, or they add an incentive, a financial incentive to make someone compelled to do it. Well, just like we know when it comes to selling a home, if you discount it, then people start to lose the true meaning of it. So they don't really appreciate what they're really buying. They're not buying this place to improve their life, or they're not buying this problem they're trying to solve. They're buying really scarcity. They're buying the fear of missing out on this deal's going away. And so just like any builder, and I know with you, for example, you don't want a bunch of homeowners buying for the wrong reason. That does not create a great legacy. It actually creates a really unhappy experience even once they move in, because then you're constantly having to deal with their complaints, their frustrations, because they shouldn't have bought they didn't buy for the right reason. They just didn't. It's not a true buyer. It's like a forced marriage or something. I don't know. It's not good. So the same thing happens in the military. Well, in the Army right now, they're giving $50,000 bonuses, home discounts, bonuses to join the Army. Well, the problem with that is, and I asked the recruiters, I said, how excited are you going to be in a foxhole? And you turn to your brother next to you, your sister next to you, and you say, hey, so why did you join? Why are you serving? Why are you going to get my back right now? And they go, well, because I needed to pay off some debt, and they gave me 50 grand and said, what else am I going to do? I mean, that's not exactly who you want next to you, right? So I felt very compelled to try to fix that problem, because I don't want people defending this country that are bribed to do so. I want them doing it because they truly believe it's a calling and it's what they're supposed to do, and they want to serve. And so one of the first questions I asked the recruiters, though, is I said, so tell me about this job. And they said, well, it's the job that no one wants. It's the job that if you want to get a pay raise in the military, you're either going to be a combat instructor or you're going to be a recruiter, and it's the job no one wants. And so I said, well, why is that? And they said, well, it's considered to be the hardest job in the military. And which is interesting, right? It's interesting that a sales job, because that's really what recruiting is. Recruiting is a sales job. They're going to high school kids, and they're taking them through a process to say, are you happy with your current life? Is the path you're currently on the path that you want to be on? Meaning, do you want to go to college? Do you want to go where that takes you? Do you want all these things? Do you want to go work at Amazon? And if you don't like the path that you're on, then let me give you another option, an option to serve, an option to learn some really cool skills, an option to see the world. I mean, have adventure and fun. And there's so many other cool things you can do that you don't even know about. And so that's really the message. So it's a sales job. Well, so they told me, though, it's the toughest job in the military, because obviously the rejection they get, and all the unfortunately the parents and the teachers that say there's no way my kid's going to serve, and which is pretty bad. It's pretty bad that we're to this place right now that the number one enemy the recruiters have, the number one enemy is not Amazon, it's not college, it's actually the parents and teachers of our schools. that are telling them like, don't go serve the military, which is insane. It's insane. So I basically said, I said, look, well, that's very sad to me. And I'm going to do my best to change this. And I said, sometime during the 90-day sales training program that we create for you, we take you through, we're going to shift your thinking from this is the hardest job in the military to this is the most important job in the military. And I said, the reason why I feel that way is because, if you look at, Al Qaeda or the Taliban or the enemy, I think their recruiters feel that way. I think that's how they're able to convince these kids to, unfortunately, put bombs on their chest and do pretty horrible things, because they believe it's so important to be in the position that you're in and convince people, to be the tip of the spear. And that's what you guys really are. You're the tip of the spear. You're the one that's really selling America. I mean, that's what recruiters are, right? I mean, they're selling America. So. Yeah. So that's what we did. So we had a great success though. In the first pilot program, we increased the success by 108%. So their conversion rate went up 108%. Every recruiter that was in the program enlisted 7 more soldiers in that 90 days. The ones that didn't, we were able to make a effective recruiter in 13 weeks, which means they make their quota or their mission. They call it their mission, and which is pretty cool. In 13 weeks versus it takes the military normally 13 months. And any of them that were on a suicide watch list, we took off the suicide watch list because they had a tremendous amount of anxiety and stress. And so we took them all off that as well.
Wow, that's amazing. Kudos to you. An over 100% increase in conversion rate. And it's not like the military got rid of basic training or Hell Week, right?
No, they still send them to Fort Knox. They just, I mean, the difference is and you know this. I mean, really, what's interesting is if the military would probably train the recruiters the same way they train, like any other position in the Army, they'd probably be more effective at it. But for some reason, like, a lot of people don't realize what we're doing. But so my training, as you know, is it's just experiential learning. So you learn something and then you go do it and then you report back on and how did it work, and then we give you live action feedback on here's what you say next time. So these recruiters would come and say, hey, Mr. Forrest, I just went to a career fair and I had, it's so funny. I had a college kid come up to me, and then at the same time I had a parent flank me on the right, and then I had another kid flank me on the left. It was like, I'm getting outnumbered. All these people are asking me questions like, how would you handle it, sir? So it's like that real life stuff. The grandma says, there's no effing way that you're sending there's no effing way that my kid's going to serve this government, this president, whatever. It's like, how would you handle it? So it's that real life stuff that we get to help them through on a weekly basis. That unfortunately, the way they're currently being taught by the military is more of like it's more of like an immersion thing in a classroom in Fort Knox, and they're not learning it, like they would normally learn something. That's not how they teach them how to shoot a rifle. So, but for some reason that's how they're teaching them how to sell. So it's just incorrect. Well,
in my world, Jason, I consider that giving back. That's pretty major. Congratulations on your successes there. Really, you're an important part of our business. We're thrilled to have Forrest Performance Group alongside with us on our journeys. How do people learn more about your organization?
Sure. Just go to fpg.com. You can also, of course, connect with me on LinkedIn. You can email me at jason@fpg.com. But definitely would love to help any patriots out there. So that's a big thing too with us, Brock, and you know this. If you go to our About Us page, one of the things that we're very big on is we do not help everyone. So if you have a product or service that's conning people or hurting people or manipulating people or it's causing destruction in the world that we don't feel is actually ethically and morally correct, then we will not train you. So for example, we don't train pharmaceutical companies. So we don't train solar companies. We feel like there's certain organizations we feel like are doing more harm than good, and we don't want to give them the advanced persuasion techniques that we know because we don't want the enemy to have better weapons.
Impressive. Good discipline on that.
Yeah, we've definitely lost a lot of money by saying no to them.
You do all right. Well, thanks for joining us here today, Jason. It's good talking to you. And to our audience, enjoy this episode of The Spirit of 1776. When we see you next time, in the meantime, stay free.